When Chloe Bennett handed a love letter to my fiancé, Ethan Carter, everyone in the corridor burst out laughing. She looks like a literal whale. How does she think she has a shot with our star quarterback? Seeing her eyes well up with tears, I stepped in and stopped the jeering. I tried to comfort her, but she spat right back at me. Audrey Miller, I don't need your fake pity. You're such a hypocrite. The next morning, when I opened my eyes, I realized I had somehow turned into Chloe. Before I could even process what was happening, my phone rang. It was Chloe calling from my old number. I paid a witch online to swap our bodies, she sneered, her voice dripping with malice. I want you to experience what it's like to be poor, ugly, and pathetic. From now on, your billionaire parents are mine. And Ethan is mine too. I hung up the phone. I looked at my reflection and actually smiled. I was finally free from that living hell of a home. I was finally free from my toxic fiancé. She had no idea what a horrific price I had to pay for my perfect body. I woke up in Chloe's bed. The rich, warm aroma of freshly baked pastries drifted into the room. I rushed out the door and saw Chloe's mom, Emma, busy in the cozy kitchen, preparing a feast of a breakfast. I swallowed hard, my mouth watering. Emma turned around and gave me a warm, gentle smile. Morning, Chloe. Why are you up so early today? I made your favorite pumpkin waffles. I walked over to the table, grabbed a hot waffle, and began to devour it. As I chewed, tears of pure joy streamed down my face. I couldn't remember the last time I had tasted sugar. My breakfast had always been strictly limited to one hard-boiled egg and a cup of unsweetened almond milk. Once on Halloween, I sneaked a single piece of candy. My mother slapped me across the face so hard my ears rang. Emma froze, looking at me with deep concern. Chloe, sweetie, what's wrong? Are you feeling sick? Do we need to go to the clinic? Seeing her frantic, genuinely worried face made me sob even harder. My own mother had never looked at me with that kind of love. Once, I sprained my wrist badly during ballet practice. My mother banned me from going to the hospital. She was terrified that a cast would ruin my look for a high society gala that evening, ruining my chances of networking with eligible bachelors. I reached out, holding her rough, warm hand and whispered, "Mom, I'm okay." Hearing my voice, her eyes turned red. Are you still upset about that boy? Going after the person you like is brave, sweetie. The people who laughed at you are the ones who should be ashamed. In my eyes, you will always be the most beautiful girl. It felt as if something warm and heavy had just filled my hollow chest. Chloe had such a loving mother, yet she had never learned to cherish her. My phone buzzed again on Snapchat. Chloe had sent me a selfie. In the photo, she was wearing my face, dripping in my diamonds, posing in my designer gown. Her smile was incredibly smug. Look what your parents just bought me. A new Tiffany necklace. I'm going on a date with Ethan tonight. I wonder if he's a good kisser. I bet he's amazing. Audrey, are you burning with jealousy right now? I looked at her tiny, snatched waist in the photo and felt nothing but a wave of relief. She had no idea how fragile and broken that body actually was. To make me look more graceful on the ballet stage, my mother had forced me to undergo surgery to remove 2 of my ribs. Every time it rained, my lower back would throb with an unbearable, dull ache. I ignored her message and took another huge, satisfying bite of my waffle. For 20 years, I had finally had a warm, flavorful breakfast. That afternoon, I went to the clinic for a full medical checkup. The doctor reviewed my charts and pushed up his glasses. Your weight is severely over the limit, but the root issue is insulin resistance. On top of that, your metabolism is completely ruined from taking unregulated, sketchy diet pills. But if you follow a proper meal plan, do low-impact workouts, and stick to the treatment, you can definitely get healthy again. I gripped the report, my eyes stinging with tears. The doctor gave me a gentle warning. But with your current weight, do not rush into anything crazy. No starving yourself, no intense running, and absolutely do not believe any of those lose 40 pounds in a month scams on TikTok. Heal your body first. The weight loss will follow. I nodded seriously. There were exactly 2 months left before freshman orientation week at Huxley University. I didn't want to starve Chloe's body into a stick, nor did I plan to repeat the deadly weight loss routine I used to endure. This time, I just wanted to make this body healthy. Leaving the clinic, I hired a professional nutritionist and signed up for a gym membership. The nutritionist drew up a detailed, balanced meal plan. Carbs, proteins, vegetables, everything was included. Looking at the chicken breast and brown rice on the sheet, I couldn't help but smile. In the past, my mother would also prepare fat-burning meals for me. But that wasn't food. Half an egg in the morning, 3 pieces of lettuce for lunch, and a cup of watered-down skim milk for dinner. If the scale didn't show a drop the next morning, I would be locked in the home gym, forced to run on the treadmill until I threw up. But now my nutritionist told me with a smile, don't starve yourself, and don't chase rapid weight loss. We are building a lifestyle, not trying to kill you. My throat tightened. Thank you. When I got home, Emma saw the meal plan and immediately began studying it. How do we make this taste delicious? She murmured. Despite her grumbling, she was up before dawn the next morning, heading to the local market. She brought back the freshest organic beef, wild shrimp, and crisp greens. Chloe's dad, Mike, went even further. Hearing that I wanted to exercise, he bought a second-hand treadmill on eBay that very afternoon and hauled it up 5 flights of stairs with the help of a neighbor. "Take it easy, kiddo," he said, wiping the sweat from his forehead with a warm, goofy grin. "Big or thin, it doesn't matter. Being healthy is what counts." Looking at them, my heart felt incredibly full. Chloe, you absolute fool. You had such wonderful parents, yet you looked down on them for being poor and simple. On my first day of training, I only managed 10 minutes of fast walking on the treadmill. My back was completely drenched in sweat, my heart was hammering violently against my ribs, and my legs shook like jelly. The personal trainer told me to stop, but I grit my teeth and pushed through. 5 more minutes. In my past life, every time I ran, my mother would stand behind me with a scale and a cold glare. Now there was no one forcing me. Yet my steps were steadier than ever. When the 15 minutes were up, I leaned against the handrail, gasping for air. The girl in the mirror was flushed red, her sweaty hair plastered to her face, looking completely disheveled. But I looked at her and smiled. Chloe, day 1. Done. Over the next week, I did fast walks every morning and basic strength training every afternoon. Her physical baseline was terrible. 10 squats made her knees buckle. She couldn't hold a plank for 15 seconds, and her joints ached. I didn't force it. If it hurt, I rested. If I was hungry, I ate. The scale moved slowly, but my waistline was visibly shrinking. On the 8th night, someone suddenly tagged me in the freshman Snapchat group. "Hey Chloe, I heard you got a gym membership. Is that for real?" Right after that, a candid photo of me was leaked into the group. In the picture, I was wearing an oversized hoodie, dripping with sweat, struggling on the treadmill. The group chat instantly flooded with laughing emojis. Is that treadmill rated for industrial weight? The gym owner better have good insurance for the floorboards. Just give up. If you can drop from 200 pounds to 199 by the time college starts, we'll call it a miracle. Someone then tagged at Audrey Miller. "Queen Bee Audrey, what do you think?" A few seconds later, Chloe popped into the chat using my old identity. She sent a laughing emoji, playing innocent. "Come on guys, don't be mean. It's really brave of Chloe to try and make a change. But Chloe, sweetie, don't push yourself too hard. Don't ruin your health just to try and compete with me." The group immediately chimed in. "Compete with you? With what? She's a hippo, you're a swan. Audrey is way too nice, still sticking up for her." Then, Chloe sent me a direct message on Snapchat. "See that? No matter how hard you try, you're just a joke. 2 months until move-in day. I can't wait to see you walk onto campus looking like a total freak show." I didn't reply. I just muted the group chat and went back to prepping my meals for the next day. Real change is never made with words. In 2 months, they would see for themselves. I placed the eggs into the boiling water and set the timer. The kitchen window reflected my full figure. I reached out, gently touching the soft, chubby face in the reflection. "Just wait. This time, I will make sure you walk onto that campus with your head held high." For the next 2 months, I completely ghosted the group chats. They occasionally made jokes at my expense, but I never gave them the satisfaction of a reaction. Every morning at 6 a.m., I was out the door for my walk. I graduated from 15 minutes to 30, then to a full hour. Afternoons were for strength training, and evenings were for skincare and fixing my posture. As the weight melted off, I realized Chloe wasn't ugly at all. She was just severely bloated, and her face was covered in acne from stress and a terrible diet, which buried her features. Underneath, her eyes were round and bright, her nose was cute and perky, and her lips were naturally full. Best of all, when she smiled, a sweet little dimple appeared on her left cheek. A month in, I had lost 25 pounds. My insulin levels were stabilizing, and my knees no longer ached. In the 2nd month, I focused on body sculpting and posture. I pulled my shoulders back and elongated my neck. The muscle memory from over a decade of ballet training began to wake up in this new body. I stood against the wall for hours, correcting my alignment. When Emma saw me, she thought I was in pain. "Chloe, why are you standing against the wall like a statue?" "I'm practicing my posture, Mom." She walked around me twice, covering her mouth as a huge grin broke out. "Well, I'll be. My baby girl stands up so straight now, you look just like those models on TV." I laughed. That kind of pure, unconditioned praise was something I had never experienced before. In my past life, even when I won gold at international ballet competitions, my mother would only look at me with a cold, critical eye. "Your skirt flew up too high during that spin. It looked vulgar." But here, I simply stood up straight, and someone was genuinely proud of me. A week before orientation, I went back to the clinic. 154 pounds. In 2 months, I had lost a total of 46 pounds. It was fast, but my vitals were perfectly healthy. The doctor reviewed my lab results and nodded with satisfaction. Incredible progress. Just keep doing what you're doing. Leaving the clinic, I stood in front of the full-length mirror for a long time. I still wasn't skinny. My waist still had a soft curve, and my arms weren't bone-thin like they used to be. But the girl in the mirror had glowing skin and bright, lively eyes. She looked healthy, radiant, and free. This was what true beauty felt like. That evening, a poll suddenly popped up in the freshman Snapchat group. Vote. Huxley University Freshman Class Ambassador. There were only 2 nominees. Audrey Miller, Chloe Bennett. The group chat went absolutely wild with laughter. Who nominated Chloe? That is foul. Are we voting for an ambassador or a heavy-duty forklift? I'm voting for Chloe. Let's make her the official school mascot. In less than 10 minutes, my vote count skyrocketed to the top. They wanted to see me humiliated on a grand stage. According to the rules, the winner of the poll had to deliver a speech on behalf of the freshman class at the opening ceremony. Chloe, using my old account, sent me a DM. Surprised. I had my friends put your name on the ballot. The opening ceremony is going to be live-streamed on YouTube. I can't wait for the entire Ivy League to see a 200-pound pig waddle onto the stage. You wanted to compete with me? Here's your stage. Right after, she sent a picture of a dress. It was a stunning white haute couture gown my mother had custom-ordered for the ceremony. But in the photo, Chloe's face looked incredibly drained. She was much thinner than she had been 2 months ago. Her cheeks were hollow, her lips were pale, and there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. It seemed her new life of luxury wasn't as easy as she thought. Before I could close the app, another message popped up. Ethan is going to be on stage presenting the academic awards. How do you think he'll react when he sees you? Do you think he'll throw up? I stared at the screen, and a slow smile crept onto my face. I tapped the screen and cast a vote for myself, Chloe Bennett. Thanks for giving me the stage. I typed back. A question mark popped up from her end immediately. I didn't bother explaining. On the morning of the ceremony, Emma pulled out her secret savings card, insisting on taking me shopping. I didn't choose a baggy black dress to hide my body. Instead, I chose a vibrant, fire engine red dress. It had a fitted waist, a square neckline, and a flowing skirt that hit just mid-calf. When I stepped out of the fitting room, Emma stared at me, speechless. Mom, is it bad? She shook her head rapidly, her eyes shimmering with tears. No, it's beautiful. You look absolutely stunning. At 9 a.m., the opening ceremony commenced. The grand hall was packed with thousands of students, and the YouTube livestream view count was rising rapidly. The class Snapchat group was still buzzing. Where is Chloe? Did she chickened out? Get your screenshots ready, guys. On stage, the dean spoke into the microphone. Now please welcome our freshman representative, Chloe Bennett. Quiet giggles and hushed whispers instantly rippled through the crowd. At that exact moment, I stood outside the heavy double doors of the auditorium, took a deep breath, and pushed them open. The heavy brass handles of the auditorium doors were cold beneath my palms, but the blood coursing through my veins was burning hot. I pushed. The double doors swung open with a muffled, resonant thud that cut straight through the low hum of 3,000 chattering voices. The bright overhead stage lights spilled across the threshold, catching the rich, fiery crimson of my dress. The room didn't just quiet down. It went completely, breathtakingly dead. Everyone had their phones raised. Hundreds of screens were glowing cameras, poised to capture the spectacle they had spent 2 weeks mocking in the freshman group chat. They were waiting for the punchline, the clumsy 200-pound girl in a baggy, sweat-stained hoodie, terrified of her own shadow. Instead, I stepped across the threshold with my chin lifted, my shoulders rolled back in an effortless, regal line, and my spine as straight as an iron rod. My red dress flared softly around my calves with every stride. The square neckline framed a collarbone that had found its natural, healthy contour. My hair, thick and dark, tumbled down my back in glossy, loose waves. The acne that had once covered Chloe's face had vanished, replaced by glowing, honey-warm skin, a light dusting of blush, and eyes that shone with unwavering clarity. As I walked down the central carpeted aisle, the silence gave way to a wave of frantic, disbelieving whispers. Wait, who is that? Is that Bennett? That can't be Chloe Bennett. Did she get surgery? She looks incredible. Look at her posture. She moves like a principal dancer. On stage, standing beside the university chancellor, Ethan Carter froze. The bronze plaque in his hands tilted slightly, his knuckles turning white against the polished metal. His striking, all-American jaw dropped, his blue eyes tracking my every movement as if he had just seen a ghost. He looked completely captivated. And right behind him stood Chloe, wearing my former body. She was draped in the bespoke, pearl-embroidered white gown my mother had commissioned from Paris. But the dress hung off her like a shroud. In 2 months, she had lost another 10 pounds from Audrey's already dangerously skeletal frame. Her cheekbones jutted out like sharp knives, her skin had taken on a gray, translucent pallor, and thick layers of foundation failed to conceal the dark, hollow bruises beneath her sunken eyes. When our eyes locked across the expanse of the auditorium, Chloe's face twisted into an expression of sheer, unadulterated horror. I didn't stop. I walked up the side stairs, my low heels clicking against the wooden risers in a steady, unhurried rhythm. When I reached the center podium, the dean blinked twice, cleared his throat, and stepped back to yield the microphone. I adjusted the stand, looked out over the sea of thousands of faces, and smiled. The sweet, subtle dimple on my left cheek appeared, perfectly framed by the vibrant red of my dress. Good morning, Huxley University. My voice echoed through the auditorium, warm, resonant, and steady without a single tremor of fear. I am Chloe Bennett, and I am honored to welcome the class of 2028. I didn't read from the generic, pre-written script the student council had drafted. I spoke from the heart of a girl who had spent 16 years being starved in a gilded cage, and 2 months learning what it meant to truly live. For a long time, many of us have been taught that our worth is measured by a number on a scale, a label on our collar, or the approval of people who only love us when we are small. I said, my gaze sweeping across the front row, lingering for a fraction of a second on Ethan's dazed face, and then on Chloe's trembling frame. We are told to shrink ourselves to fit into molds designed by shallow hands. But true strength isn't about fitting into someone else's definition of perfection. It's about taking up space. It's about building a body that carries you through the world with joy, feeding a soul that refuses to be silenced, and standing tall, unapologetically yourself. The hall was so quiet you could hear the hum of the ventilation system. To the class of 2028, I concluded, lifting my head toward the bright lights. May we never spend another day living in fear of who we are. Thank you. For 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then someone in the middle row stood up and began to clap. Within 5 seconds, the entire auditorium erupted into a thunderous standing ovation. The sound was deafening, vibrating through the floorboards. Faculty members were nodding in profound approval, students were cheering, and the live stream chat projected on the side monitor was moving so fast the text blurred into a cascade of fire and heart emojis. I stepped away from the podium and gave a gracious nod. As I passed the line of award presenters, Ethan reflexively took half a step toward me, his lips parting. Chloe. I didn't even glance at him. I walked straight past him, as if he were made of glass. Behind him, Chloe gripped the wooden lectern so hard her knuckles popped, her breath coming in ragged, shallow gasps. The moment the ceremony concluded, I slipped into the backstage green room to grab my canvas tote bag. Before I could reach the door, it was violently wrenched open. Chloe stumbled inside, slamming the heavy door behind her and throwing the deadbolt. She was hyperventilating, her chest heaving violently against the tight corset of my old designer gown. How did you do it? She shrieked, her voice thin, raspy, and cracked. How did you lose that weight? You were supposed to be a laughingstock. You were supposed to walk out there and be humiliated. I turned around slowly, picking up my water bottle. You thought I would stay. Broken Chloe. You forgot that unlike you, I know how to work for what I want. You cheated, she screamed, lunging toward me. She raised her hand to strike me, just as my mother used to do. But the moment she swung, a sharp, sickening gasp tore from her throat. Her right hand flew to her lower flank. She doubled over, collapsing onto her knees on the cold linoleum floor, crying out in sheer, blinding agony. My back. Chloe whimpered, tears streaming down her hollow cheeks, smearing her expensive mascara into dark puddles. What is this? Why does it feel like someone is driving a nail into my spine? I looked down at her with a calm, unblinking gaze. It's raining outside, I said softly. Chloe looked up, her eyes wide with terror. What? The barometric pressure dropped 20 minutes ago. I explained, kneeling down to look her in the eye. When my mother had the surgeons remove the floating ribs on either side of my waist to make my lines more snatched for the Russian ballet scouts, they damaged the intercostal nerve bundle. Every time an autumn rain rolls in, those nerves spasm. It feels like hot iron pressing against your kidneys for 6 hours. Chloe's breath hitched, her face turning an ashen, sickly gray. You had surgery on your ribs. Did you think that 23-inch waist was a gift from God? I asked, a bitter smile touching my lips. Did you think Audrey Miller's life was all diamonds, private chauffeurs, and cute selfies with the quarterback? She clutched her side, shivering violently on the floor. Your mother, she's insane, Audrey. She's a monster. She locks the refrigerator with a biometric padlock. She weighed my lunch yesterday. It was 30 grams of boiled chicken and 3 slices of cucumber. I tried to eat a granola bar in the bathroom, and she heard the wrapper crinkle. She made me drink salt water until I threw it all. I know, I said quietly. She's been doing that to me since I was 7 years Old. And Ethan. Chloe sobbed, grabbing the hem of my red skirt with claw-like fingers. He's awful. He called me a boring, frigid prude because I was too exhausted to sleep with him. He told me that if I gained 2 pounds he'd start taking the sorority girls to the country club instead of me. Audrey, please. Please switch us back. I don't want this anymore. I can't breathe in this body. I reached down, gently but firmly prying her fingers off my dress. No. Iwi spat. Chloe froze. What do you mean no? You're Audrey Miller. This is your life. Take it back. You called me a hypocrite when I tried to stop them from laughing at you in the hallway. I reminded her, standing up to my full height. You paid a witch on the dark web because you wanted to steal everything I had without doing a single day of the work. You wanted the billionaire parents. You wanted the star quarterback. You wanted the status. I smoothed down the fabric of my red skirt, looking at my reflection in the dressing room mirror, strong, vibrant, healthy, and completely free. Enjoy your prize, Chloe, I said, picking up my bag and turning the deadbolt, because I am never going back. When I walked out of the campus gates, the rain was coming down in a gentle, rhythmic mist. Parked along the curb was Mike's beat-up, 10-year-old blue Ford pickup. The moment Mike saw me emerge, he jumped out of the cab into the drizzle, holding a massive, oversized yellow golf umbrella over his head. Emma was right. Behind him, rolling down the passenger window, waving a thermos in the air with a grin that stretched from ear to ear. There she is, Mike shouted, his booming voice drawing smiles from passing freshmen. There's our class speaker. He wrapped me in a massive, bear-like hug, entirely unbothered by the dampness of my jacket. You were incredible, kiddo, Mike said, his voice thick with genuine emotion as he patted my back. We watched the whole live stream on my phone in the cab. Emma cried so hard she dropped her glasses under the brake pedal. Oh hush, Mike, Emma laughed, wiping the corner of her eye with a floral handkerchief as I climbed into the middle seat between them. I was just so proud. Look at you in that red dress, sweetie. You looked like a queen up there. She pressed the warm thermos into my hands. Hot chicken noodle soup with fresh rosemary and garlic. Drink it while it's hot, Chloe. It'll keep the damp cold from settling into your chest. I unscrewed the cap. The rich, savory steam rose into the warm cab of the truck, smelling of roasted vegetables, tender meat, and unadulterated love. I took a slow, deep spoonful. In my past life, if I had eaten a bowl of soup with chicken skin and noodles, my mother would have spent the evening forcing me to run 10 miles in a sauna suit, while monitoring my heart rate on her iPad. Here, Mike turned up the radio, playing old country tunes, while Emma handed me a homemade buttermilk biscuit wrapped in foil. Eat up, baby, Emma smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from my forehead. You worked so hard these past 2 months. You earned every single bite. A tear slipped from my eye, dropping into the soup. Chloe, Emma asked, her face instantly creasing with concern. Is something wrong? Are you hurting? I shook my head, smiling through my tears as I took a huge bite of the warm biscuit. No, Mom, I whispered, resting my head against her shoulder. Nothing hurts at all. I've never been happier in my life. Over the next month, college life unfolded like a dream I had never allowed myself to have. Without the suffocating pressure of my old household, I thrived. I declared a double major in exercise science and business management. In the afternoons, I joined the university's contemporary dance troupe. For the first time in 16 years, I danced not for the cold, calculating eyes of international judges, but for the sheer, intoxicating joy of movement. My new body, Chloe's body, had transformed. Under my consistent, healthy regimen, the remaining bloat had vanished, leaving behind lean, powerful muscle. My legs were strong, able to hold deep plies without shaking. My lungs, nourished by real food and clean cardio, had incredible stamina. When I danced, people stopped in the hallways outside the studio to watch through the glass. Meanwhile, a few miles away in the prestigious North Hills district, the Miller mansion was descending into a living nightmare. Chloe had completely underestimated Victoria Miller. Victoria did not view a daughter as a human being. She viewed her as an extension of her own social brand. When Audrey failed her preliminary audition for the Royal Ballet's winter showcase, stumbling during a basic pirouette because her core muscles were too weak and her chronic rib pain too severe, Victoria's fury was catastrophic. You disgrace me. Victoria's shriek echoed through the marble corridors of the estate, captured on the security cameras Chloe had no idea how to disable. You gained 3 pounds, your lines look sloppy, and now you fall on stage like a drunken peasant. My ribs hurt, Chloe screamed back, clutching her side, curled into a ball on the Persian rug. I can't dance. I'm in pain. Take me to a hospital. Pain is weakness leaving the body. Victoria sneered, kicking away the glass of water Chloe had reached for. From today on, no solid food for a week. Master, Lee will be here at 6 in the morning for your private conditioning. If you don't drop 5 pounds by the gala, I will cancel your trust fund and send you to the boarding school in Switzerland. To make matters worse, Ethan was growing increasingly disgusted with her. He had come over to the mansion on a Friday evening, expecting the poised, ice-cold, effortlessly elegant Audrey he loved to show off like a luxury sports car. Instead, he found Chloe sitting in the dark, crying hysterically, her breath smelling of bile, begging him to bring her a box of donuts. What the hell is wrong with you, Audrey? Ethan snapped, crossing his arms, looking down at her with unmasked revulsion. You've turned completely unhinged. You used to be the classiest girl in our circle. Now you look like a walking corpse and you whine constantly. Ethan, please, Chloe wept, clutching his designer jeans. Take me away from here. Take me to your apartment. Just buy me something to eat. Ethan shoved her hands away, his face hardening. I'm not your babysitter. If you can't even keep yourself together for the winter gala, don't expect me to introduce you as my fiancé to the team scouts. Pull yourself together or we're done. He turned on his heel and slammed the front door behind him. Sitting in the empty, freezing foyer, surrounded by towering marble statues and cold, silent mirrors, Chloe finally understood the truth. The life she had envied wasn't a fairy tale. It was a gilded meat grinder. As Chloe's world collapsed, Ethan's obsession with me began to grow. He started showing up outside my lecture halls, leaning against the brick pillars in his varsity jacket, trying to flash that charming, cocky smile that used to make every girl on campus swoon. Hey, Chloe, he said one Tuesday afternoon, blocking my path as I walked toward the library with my study partner, Lucas. Lucas, a quiet, broad-shouldered pre-med student with warm brown eyes and a genuine smile, immediately stepped slightly in front of me, sensing my discomfort. Can I help you, Carter? Lucas asked calmly. Ethan barely glanced at him, keeping his intense gaze locked on my face. I'm talking to Chloe. Hey, I was wondering if you wanted to grab coffee at the downtown roastery. My treat. I looked at Ethan. For 2 years, in my past body, I had molded myself into whatever he wanted. I had laughed at his crude jokes, endured his passive-aggressive insults about my weight, and swallowed my pride while he openly flirted with other girls at parties just to keep me on edge. Now looking at him through Chloe's clear, unclouded eyes, I saw him for what he truly was, a shallow, insecure boy who only valued things he couldn't control. No thank you, Ethan, I said evenly. Ethan blinked, completely unaccustomed to rejection. Come on, don't be like that. I saw your dance routine at the showcase yesterday. You were incredible. You have this grace. It reminds me of someone I used to know, but warmer, much more captivating. He took a step closer, lowering his voice to a confidential murmur. Look, things with Audrey are basically over. She's completely lost her mind. I'm looking for someone real. Someone like you. A dry, sharp laugh escaped my lips. You're pathetic, Ethan, I said, my voice ringing clear enough for nearby students to hear. You abandon the girl you claim to love the second she shows vulnerability, and you chase after the person you spent years publicly mocking. Keep your coffee. I'd rather drink puddle water. I turned to Lucas. Ready for study group? Lucas smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Let's go. Ethan stood frozen on the pavement, his face burning a dark, humiliated crimson, as dozens of students chuckled under their breath, watching the star quarterback get completely dismissed. The annual Miller Foundation Winter Gala was the high society event of the season. Held in the grand ballroom of the Bellevue Country Club, the hall was decorated in ice sculptures, towering crystal chandeliers, and white orchids. Hundreds of the city's wealthiest investors, politicians, and socialites filled the room, sipping vintage champagne. Victoria Miller stood by the grand entrance, wearing an emerald-cut diamond necklace, holding court with the board of the National Ballet Company. Beside her, leaning heavily against a marble pillar to keep from collapsing, was Chloe. Chloe was a shadow of a human being. Her collarbones stuck out like sharp ledges, her waist cinched into a terrifyingly tight corset that made every breath a wheezing struggle. Her makeup was applied so heavily it looked like a porcelain mask, trying desperately to cover her hollow cheeks and sunken, dead eyes. Smile, Audrey, Victoria hissed through her teeth, not moving her lips as a photographer approached. Straighten your shoulders. The director of the Joffrey Ballet is arriving in 10 minutes. If you slouch again, I will have your father cut your credit lines entirely. Chloe's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped her champagne flute. Just then, the main doors opened, and a ripple of hushed admiration swept through the ballroom. I walked in. I had been invited as the guest of honor by the Dean of Arts, who was presenting Huxley University's Community Youth Dance Initiative. I wore a bespoke emerald green velvet gown that hugged my curves with absolute, regal elegance. The fabric draped softly over my hips, flowing into a graceful train that brushed the polished marble. My hair was swept into an intricate updo, leaving my long, graceful neck bare. On my lips was a bold, confident berry stain, and on my cheek, that sweet, unforgettable dimple. Walking beside me was Lucas, looking remarkably handsome in a classic black tuxedo, his hand resting respectfully and protectively at the small of my back. Every eye in the ballroom pivoted toward us. "Who is that girl?" a senior patron whispered. "That's Chloe Bennett, the girl who gave that incredible speech at Huxley's orientation. She just won the State Regional Choreography Fellowship. She's stunning. Absolute perfection." Ethan, standing near the bar with his football teammates, set his glass down so hard the stem snapped. He stared at me, his breath hitching in his throat. Chloe looked across the room. When she saw me, radiant, celebrated, standing beside a handsome, kind man who looked at me like I was the only person in the room. The last fragile thread of her sanity snapped. She threw her champagne glass to the floor. The crystal shattered violently, the sound echoing like a gunshot through the opulent hall. "It's not fair," Chloe shrieked, her voice tearing through the classical music. The orchestra abruptly stopped playing. The room went dead silent. "Audrey," Victoria gasped, her face draining of color as she grabbed Chloe's arm with bruising force. "Have you lost your mind? Stop this immediately. Let go of me, you monster," Chloe screamed, ripping her arm away with a manic strength born of pure desperation. She stumbled into the center of the ballroom, tearing off her diamond necklace and hurling it at Victoria's feet. "I'm not Audrey," Chloe wailed, clutching her screaming ribs, tears carving grotesque rivers through her heavy powder. "I'm not your daughter. Your daughter is standing right over there. Look at her. She stole my healthy body and left me with this broken, starving shell." The crowd gasped in utter shock. Whispers exploded across the room like wildfire. "Audrey, stop this nonsense," Victoria snapped, signaling the private security guards. "She's having a nervous breakdown. Escort her out the back." "No. Look at my back," Chloe shrieked, turning around and violently yanking down the zipper of her gown before security could reach her. Across her lower back, the jagged purple surgical scars from the illegal rib removal were laid bare for 300 high society patrons and dozens of press cameras to see. "She cut my bones out," Chloe sobbed, pointing an accusing, trembling finger at Victoria. "She starved me. She locked the fridge. She made me puke up every meal. This whole family is sick. It's a prison." Chloe's knees buckled. Her eyes rolled back into her head, and she collapsed onto the cold marble floor, completely unconscious from acute malnutrition and nerve shock. Sirens wailed in the distance as someone called 911. The gala dissolved into absolute, irreversible chaos. Victoria stood frozen in the center of the room, surrounded by flashing cameras. Her pristine reputation, her social standing, and her illusions of perfection shattered into a million irrecoverable pieces. I stood by the entrance, watching the scene unfold with calm, sorrowful clarity. Lucas gently took my hand, his fingers warm and steady around mine. "Are you okay?" I looked up at him, then down at the broken girl being lifted onto a stretcher by EMTs. "Yes," I whispered softly. "I'm finally okay." The fallout was swift and merciless. The State Child Protective Services and the Regional Medical Board launched an immediate, high-profile criminal investigation into Victoria Miller, the illicit private clinic that had performed the cosmetic bone excision on an underage girl. Was raided and shut down, its chief surgeon stripped of his medical license. Facing charges of child endangerment, medical negligence, and corporate fraud, the Miller family became an international pariah. Their stock plummeted there. Country club memberships were revoked, and Victoria fled to Europe to avoid public trials. Ethan Carter's career met a similar demise. Recordings of his abusive voicemails to Audrey were leaked to the university athletics board, resulting in the immediate revocation of his starting quarterback position and his full-ride scholarship. By the spring semester, he had quietly transferred to a remote community college out of state, his dreams of the NFL permanently extinguished. As for Chloe, after 2 months in an intensive psychiatric and physical rehabilitation facility, her body slowly stabilized. But the damage done to Audrey's frame was permanent. The chronic nerve pain in her ribs would linger for the rest of her life, and she would never dance again. She lived in a modest, state-monitored apartment, surviving on a small trust allowance, forever trapped in the physical cage she had so desperately sought to steal. And I was finally home. On a bright, crisp morning in May, the scent of blooming lilacs filled the air. I stood on the lawn outside our small suburban house, wearing a flowing sundress, helping Mike load the back of the blue pickup with freshly painted garden planters for the local spring fair. Emma came out the front door, carrying a tray of iced lemonade and warm, golden brown cinnamon rolls fresh from the oven. Take a break, you two, Emma called out, her warm, beautiful smile lighting up the entire yard. The fair doesn't start for another hour. Lucas stepped out from the garage, wiping his hands on a shop towel, smiling as he walked over to wrap an arm around my waist, pressing a gentle, sweet kiss to my temple. Need help with the heavy boxes, Chloe? I've got the strength for it. I laughed, lifting a wooden planter effortlessly into the truck bed, my dimple flashing in the morning sun. I paused, looking at the warm sunlight filtering through the oak leaves, listening to Emma's cheerful laughter as she teased Mike about his sweet tooth. I had lost the diamonds. I had lost the billionaire name. I had lost the gilded ballroom. And in return, I had gained a healthy body, a peaceful mind, and a family whose love was as vast, warm, and unconditional as the open sky. I picked up a warm cinnamon roll, took a sweet, joyful bite, and smiled into the sun. I was Chloe Bennett. And my life was finally, beautifully my own.